So we're calling the meeting to order at 7:03 PM, November 18th, 2024. Let's start us off with some roll call. I'm going to have to, I don't know your guys' last names.
Mr. Chair, you could just ask people to
let's
say
go
their
from,
name and say if they're here.
Left to right. So say your name.
Commissioner Bryan, here.
Commissioner Saunders Pierce, present.
Present.
Commissioner Gill, present.
Commissioner Cryer, present.
Commissioner Edwards, present.
All right. And then we'll move on to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I will motion to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, no staff changes. Thanks for checking.
Then I'll make a second to the motion.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Then on to the approval of the September 16th, 2024 meeting minutes. Is there any changes proposed to those minutes? And if not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then on to item number 5A, new member orientation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So tonight we would like to welcome our new members, Commissioner Cryer and Saunders Pierce. We're glad to have you. We've had a vacancy on this commission for about a year and a half, and then the second vacancy happened last month when another member has resigned. So we're excited to have you and excited to have a full house finally. But I'd like to put together this new member orientation, and we don't have to go over all the details, but I thought maybe we could just touch on a few things. In your packet, I put together some information for you on how the commission operates. We do meet once a month on the third Monday of the month. And then on January and February, we always have to look at alternate dates because of the holidays. So we'll look at that later this commission meeting and work on a date that works for all of us. But the purpose of the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission, as written in the ordinance, which was adopted by the commission in 2006, is to establish environmental priorities and to propose new and updated environmental ordinances which ensure that the city's environmental assets are protected, preserved, and enhanced. And since the time of the commission's adoption, I think we have made a lot of headway here in Maplewood on some environmental ordinances and policies. This commission was instrumental in looking at our, as an example, renewable energy ordinance, removing barriers and promoting more opportunities for new renewable energy on all of our buildings. Of course, this commission looked at the organized trash hauling back in 2012, which was, I think, one of the biggest tackles. The commission is the advisory board to our Green Step Cities program and also our climate adaptation plan. And this year, we've been focusing on our green building code, so we hope to kind of wrap that up this month, maybe next month, and then bring it to our city staff, mainly our building department and community development department, for kind of their comments and feedback, and any changes we'd bring back to the commission, and then hope to bring that on to our council by spring of next year, I would estimate. So my name's Sean Finwall. I've been the staff liaison for this commission for some time. I'm the environmental planner with the city of Maplewood, and I'm housed out of the Maplewood Nature Center. That's where my office is. And so I work in the department, mainly, actually it's Public Works, but we have a division called Parks and Natural Resources, and I work with several other employees down at that Nature Center. Audra Robbins is my supervisor. She's the Park and Natural Resources Manager. Carol Gurnis is our Natural Resource Coordinator. She manages all those open space sites that Maplewood preserved back in the 90s, and now, of course, you have to manage them. and works with the Bluebird monitoring program and other programs that we were just listening to Commissioner Edwards speak of. And then Neil Brenneman, he's our recreation program supervisor and does a lot of the events, coordinates the events and our like the warming house programs, things like that. So that's your team here. I put together a packet every month, and I try to get that to you by the Thursday or Friday before the meeting. We've switched to all electronic, but I usually have a copy or two here in case you forget your computer or something. And that's posted on our website. The Environmental Commission has an actual page on the website. Let's see. Back in 2010, this commission adopted the rules of procedure, which speaks of, electing a chair and vice chair at the beginning of the year and how the commission runs its meetings by Robert's Rules of Order, and that we need a quorum, which is at least 4 members to be present in order to hold a meeting. And then our Environmental Commission meeting, as well as all other commission meetings and our city council, are broadcast live, so we're live right now, and then you can stream them on our website, and then they're also found on the cable channel 16. So a couple different ways for our residents to stay informed rather than having to come out on a rainy night like this and visit us. But we know they're there watching. So let's see, I think that kind of sums it up. I just wanted to make that introduction, and I really wanted to welcome both of our new commissioners. We're excited to have you on board and maybe give you an opportunity to say a word or two, to introduce yourself to the public and your fellow commissioners. So maybe we could start with Commissioner Cryer, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. My name is Joanne Cryer. I am live in the southern part of Maplewood. I've been in Maplewood for 25 years. I'm very excited to be part of the committee and hopefully help shape some of our discussions and our environmental policies here in Maplewood. So I'm very excited to be part of the team, and thank you for the opportunity.
Great, thank you for that, Commissioner Cryer. Very nice to meet everyone tonight, and I'm thrilled to be part of this Environment and Natural Resource Commission. I'll just share a few things that I shared when I interviewed for this with the City Council, one of which is by virtue of my experience, I am a water resource practitioner, so I have a lot of experience in stormwater management, wetlands, so forth, but I spent 10 years working in local government, so I'm really excited to be back in the space of working with land use at the local scale. And I'm just really excited to also talk about the other aspects of sustainability, including the Green Building Code, all the other things that we have talked about with renewable energy, things of that nature. So very glad to be part of this commission and look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
I think I speak on behalf of the remaining of the commission, but we're all very happy to have you, and as Sean mentioned before, happy to have a full roster now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. The new members got a tour of our city hall beforehand, so they saw how the sausage is made now. And I hope I haven't scared them away. You didn't? It's because you were late, probably. Oh, yeah, COVID was challenging times. Well, darn it. Next month, you're getting the tour. I'll be late for that. You know. All right, so I'll move on if you're ready. Thank you. So tonight we have, the next item is a resolution of appreciation for Emma Broadnax, So when our citizen members end their time of service on a commission, the city considers adoption of a resolution of appreciation, recognizing the individual for their time committed to serving Maplewood. And tonight, we're going to look at that resolution and make a recommendation on that for our city council. And that is for our most recent member who resigned, Emma Broadnax. Emma was on the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission for 3 years, from October 25, 2021 to September 30, 2024. And I included in your packet that resolution of appreciation, which goes into our acknowledgement of the work she does and how the city appreciates her experience, insights, and good judgment while on this commission. But I always like to kind of add something in here about what she helped guide during her term. And when she was here, she was helping with the Green Building Code, the Climate Mitigation Planning Process, Renewable Energy Ordinance, Climate Adaptation Plan Implementation Strategies, and the Mississippi River Critical Area Ordinance. You know, all that in 3 years. So we appreciate her work and effort, and she'll be missed. So with that, I open it up to the commission. We are looking for a recommendation of approval for the resolution of appreciation. Thank you.
I'll make a motion for the recommendation for the resolution. Commissioner Broadnax and I started kind of roughly about the same time, so it's sad to see her go, but I enjoyed working with her during that time.
Yeah, I agree. I think right around that same time might have been from the same cohort of individuals, but it was short but sweet. So I'll second that motion. All right then, all in favor?
Aye.
All righty then. And then Sean, did you plan on having that presented at council?
Yes, the last meeting is December 9th, so perhaps we can bring it there. And it is helpful to have the chair or vice chair present for that. So I'll check on the dates for that and get back to you. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yep. Then, on to item 6A, unfinished business, the Green Building Code.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. So now we'll get into the meat of the meeting here. And it was a little challenging, you know, because we have these two new members wanting to get them up to speed on things. So in your packet, I did include kind of the background of our Green Building Code and how we got here. I think I kind of left off, though, this all started, I think, as the city was participating in the Gold Leaf program, which is, I referred to the Green Step Cities program, which is administered by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Maplewood has been participating in that program since 2010, and we are now a Step 5, which is the highest award in that program. So what they have done now is they've kind of a new program. The city participated in the pilot last year. They're calling it the Gold Leaf program, and it's a way for cities now, cities like Maplewood, who have kind of undertaken many of the smaller, lower-hanging fruit items of sustainability, to help them move on to the next steps, mainly of climate planning. And so when we participated in this last year, we were, one of the requirements was to take on at least two climate action projects. And so Maplewood now is undergoing our climate mitigation plan. That's one of those, and you'll get an update on that shortly. And then this Green Building Code, which was one of the actions that they had recommended. It was mainly in there to promote green building codes for cities that don't have such a code currently. And they also call these stretch codes, you know, because they They go above and beyond what the state building code requires for like energy efficiency and things of that nature. And cities can implement them, but only for construction that's funded by the city. So these stretch codes. And so even though Maplewood had a green building code, we knew that there were some challenges with that existing code. So since that time, the Environmental Commission has been really digging into that and looking at various options for our code. And so we're kind of at the tail end of that process now, where we have a draft code in front of us. And during our last meeting, the commissioners had some research for me to do, and so I'm going to present that tonight. But to start here, just for mainly our new commission information, our current Maplewood Green Building Code was adopted in 2013, and it's based off of the 2012 International Green Construction Code. And I would like to note that since that time, these international codes, they're updated every 3 years. So there's, the newest one is 2021. And Maplewood is still kind of working off that 2012. So right there, you can see that there's probably some updates that need to take place. And then for residential projects, it's the National Green Building Standards. And the city has seen several buildings constructed under these codes. I think I listed them in that background data. But I guess most notably in Maplewood, some of the city-funded buildings like our south and north fire stations were both built under that code. And we've done some studies on those buildings, and we are finding that they are, more energy efficient, not using as much electricity, and there's a lot of opportunity for renewable energies on those too in the future. So with this ordinance, all city-funded buildings must follow the code, which includes additional energy efficiency strategies and other green building elements. What we call city-funded buildings includes, like if the city adopts a tax increment financing district and a development gets funding from the city to help with that development, that's a city-funded building, and they would also have to follow the code. So again, the Environmental Commission has been looking at this since 2023, and mainly to ensure it meets the city's sustainability goals and review options for electric vehicle charging station requirements and other green building initiatives. Because the current code doesn't have any EV standards in there or renewable energy standards. So I included, it's a pretty simple ordinance really when you look at it. Now that we've removed all the barriers with the International Construction Code, but this is kind of the outline of the code. So it starts with the scope, purpose and intent, definitions, green building rating systems, and what we have chosen to do was to take on a green building code that allows developers to build under current performance-based codes. And that's what we're finding other cities in Minnesota have undertaken. And in your in the packet here, I put together information on those cities. I think there's, what was it, about 9 or 10 cities that have adopted green building codes according to the Green Step Cities program. And all of those cities except Maplewood has adopted a performance-based code where, a developer can build under maybe LEED certification or Energy Star, so these are things that are real familiar to architects throughout the state, and we found that the Green Construction Code is something that they're not as familiar with because, again, that's throughout the country, and that's one of the challenges the city has seen with that code. And then green building standards, now we're adding some standards, and I think there's 5 that we've included, and we'll go into those. And again, cover things like EV charging station, parking requirements, and diversion of construction of waste. So the scope starts out, here's the research. So we'll just start with the scope. So during our last meeting, there was a question about, do new and renovated city-funded buildings follow the existing green building code? Because there was we needed clarification on that. And the previous code was written to require that all renovated buildings. So let's say the city was going to be doing an addition to City Hall. That would also have to follow those new codes. So, ensuring energy efficient appliances, things like that, in addition to all new buildings. So with that, I noticed that there was a portion of the old code that was kind of left out. So, and it's not in your draft attachment here, but I want to get your feedback on this. So if you look at attachment 3, on the second page, originally under, let's see, I think it was base documents, where we were outlining that the code was based on the International Green Building Code and then also the International Green Construction Code. And in there is where we defined, which of the properties were included. And thanks to your research, I caught that we didn't even really define that. All we said was this section applies to City of Maplewood owned and financed buildings. So this language expands on that and makes sure that, we're capturing, like we did before, all the new and remodeled buildings. So that language that you see on the screen here comes directly from the previous code. So maybe I'll just take a moment, see if you have any questions about that or proposed modifications. It pretty much sums up anything you want to do with the building, really. Okay, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's coming from the previous ordinance, so yeah, okay. We'll move on. Now we're going into the green rating system, and again, this is looking at those performance-based codes. And the commission had looked at various green construction codes throughout the state for examples, and also had been really kind of following that guide, which was published by, let's see here, excuse me, Minnesota Municipal Sustainable Building Policies Guide, and that was something that was drafted by the Center for Energy and Environment in 2022, and it includes best practices and recommendations for creating a framework and implementing a mandatory sustainable building policy. So based on that research, here are the 6 areas of green rating system that the city would allow for a developer that would come in and request some sort of city funding, or if the state, or excuse me, the city actually built a new structure or, added on. So there was no questions about that. I just bring it here for our new commissioner mainly. Okay, so now we're getting into the standards and some of that research that you wanted me to look into. First is on the EV parking standards. So we were having some challenges with the definitions of EV capable, EV ready, and EV installed. And you recall that we were looking mainly at the Department of Labor and Industries recommendations for new members here. The legislature has required that the Department of Labor and Industry put together EV standards for statewide, which should be adopted in the next 2 years. they can't, it'll be under the building code, so they can't really adopt or any kind of rules that would apply to land use. But what they do is it would require a certain number of parking spaces to be EV capable, EV ready, or EV installed if the city actually required parking for that development. So that's something that all cities will have to be developed under in the next 2 years. So we wanted to at least start with that as a starting point. And so what we looked at were the draft guide for those standards. And they call out these 3 definitions. And we found that the EV capable and EV ready were so familiar, or similar, I should say, that do we really need those? And so I requested that our new AMPACT member, Jaylee Cartwright, she's with us until June. She did a little research, and I included that in your packet on those definitions. And you can see really the difference between the capable and the ready is that the ready actually has the electrical actually installed out to the parking space so that you just plop that, and I'm sure it's a lot more technical than that, but you put the EV charger right there and plug it in, and it's ready to go. So the EV capable mainly has the conduits and so forth out there. So initially, our commission felt like we probably just need the EV ready or EV installed. So I'll just pause and see if there's any comments, feedback, questions on that.
I thought we had talked about the EV capable as having like a higher percentage of the parking spaces could be that EV capable because it could just be part of the construction. It would be a easy thing to do for builders if we did the EV capable for, I think when Commissioner Redmond was here, he said like 70 or 80%, I can't remember what it was, that it would be easy to do the EV capable for just a larger percentage of the parking spaces, where the EV ready and the EV installed were, I think it's like 2 or 3 spaces per however many, like 2 per 25, 3 for 50, that we could at least get, that it could be part of the construction and it would be easier to have it done at that point.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't sure where we left it with
Yeah.
all that. But we'll take a look at the proposed numbers here in a minute.
Okay.
And the Department of Labor, we kind of dropped the capable on there and just did EV ready and EV installed, so we can go back and take a look at those requirements. But I hear what you're saying, that as a development, it wouldn't cost you much more just to put in the conduit.
Conduit, correct.
Whereas, of course, the electrical and all that is adding that expense.
Correct, yeah, and it would be the time to do it is when you're building it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll just take a look at those, well, here's the 2 definitions that are in our proposed ordinance, which we kind of just looked at, but it doesn't have the EV capable, but we'll readdress that. And then here is the requirements as proposed by the Department of Labor and Industry, and this will be statewide eventually. So I don't have the EV capable, but you can see it would be, probably, as an example, for the 100 parking spaces, you'd have 6 EV installed, 5 EV ready, and maybe it was 4 EV capable. And I have some examples, or one example here that I brought up, I think last month, just to kind of get a feel for what it would mean for a development. So we're looking here at the Wakefield Community Building, which is a city building in Wakefield Park. And this is a fairly new building. It was built in 2020. And the capacity is 70 people, if you were to host an event there. The square footage is 10,000 square feet. And there are 50 parking stalls out there. So based on the Department of Labor and Industry standards, we would have required 3 EV installed and 2 EV ready parking spaces there. I would like to note that this parking lot was developed as EV ready, but we didn't really have a lot of guidance and ordinances back then, so I'm not sure as far as EV parking spaces. So I'm not sure what that means. I don't know if the electrical is just built out there, or maybe it's just the EV capable. I'm not sure. But we hope to see a EV charging station there someday, because it is kind of built in right now to some degree.
The definitions are great, because I know that was really, at the last meeting, we could not figure out the difference
Yeah.
between the three without, and so these definitions really do clarify what each one means.
So I will take a look at our definitions and make sure it kind of meets with what's the research that Jaylee put together here. And take a look at those EV capable and see how that fits in again, now that we've had this discussion about what the heck is the difference, so.
Yeah, because it was a percentage. It wasn't just a number like 3 or 4. It was like 70% or 60% of the parking spaces have that capability to, in the future, run wires. The conduit was just a cheap and easy thing to put in when you're building it. So I remember it was a percentage. It wasn't an actual, like, number.
Just for the EV capable.
EV capable, correct, yeah.
Okay. So we'll move on. Our another green standard is predicted greenhouse gas and actual energy use. And we had kind of a lengthy discussion about this. But now I'm going to get stumped again. Just for our new members, so when an architect is designing a building, the city would require that they show how much energy this building is predicted to use, and then and how much, and you need that information to determine, the greenhouse gases that will be emitted from that. And then we can use that information to discuss energy efficiency standards and, renewable energy to make it a more green building. So it's just another tool.
And are we doing this already? Wasn't that part of the discussion? Are they doing this already when they're building?
No.
They're not?
No.
Okay, great.
Well, under our current green construction code,
Yeah,
okay, not the greenhouse gas,
okay.
yeah. And I think it was just predicted, not actual,
Right,
one of the two, yeah.
Yeah.
So this would be over and above what we currently are requiring.
okay.
And then now we're looking at the utilization of renewable energy. So here was a little bit more research that the commission wanted me to look into, and Jaylee looked at this. But the SB 2030 is one of the green buildings frameworks that we're proposing to use. So we wanted to know if that required a certain percentage of annual energy be met by renewables, and does it include a definition of the social cost of carbon? So, yes is the answer. Reduction in energy use intensity by 90%. These numbers can be achieved by combining energy efficiency and on-site renewable energy generated. And then it also includes a definition for social cost of carbon, is a way to measure the monetized value of damage to society caused by increased metric tons of CO2 emissions. So we're not really recommending any changes after that research, from what I can tell. But here is in the proposed code, we have those two definitions, social cost, and then the actual standard is meet 10% of annual energy need on-site through renewables if cost-effective through use of social cost of carbon. So, and through this 15-year simple payback. So it's a way to determine, if after that 15 years, is it really cost effective? And if not, the city wouldn't require it. But in any case, the project would have to be solar capable, which now we know, maybe we need, we do have a definition for solar capable. So once again, kind of like that EV capable, just having the conduits in there, not necessarily the electrical component. Any further questions on that green standard? Oh, and I came up with an example here, and I'm not an expert on this, but this example was Wakefield Community Building once again, and I did look up the energy use for a year, 48,271 kilowatt hours. I don't know that this is correct, but requiring 143 solar panels or 400 watt average. 2% of the renewables for that building would be, did I say 2%? It was supposed to be 10%. See, I still didn't fix that. 10% of the renewables would be, no. I think you corrected me last time, and here I am with that same slide with the error. Yeah. Would be 14, well. This is a terrible example, and I'm just going to skip past it. But it was a pretty picture, wasn't it?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Then.
Can we go back to the solar for a second?
Yes.
Okay, so
But
just.
not that slide.
No, not that slide. So it says meet 10% of the annual energy needed on site through renewables if cost effective. How do we quantify that, if cost effective? Do you know what I mean? Who decides that?
Well, it's a social cost of carbon. So in the definition above, social cost of carbon is an estimate of the cost in dollars of the damage done by each additional ton of carbon emissions. So it seems like we had this discussion, and we thought that using this social cost of carbon was a good way to get at it. So again, it's looking at a 15-year simple payback. Is it cost effective based on the damage it would do versus, see, I'm not very good at explaining it.
I think Commissioner Redmond, when we had this conversation in the past, had basically said it's going to be cost effective with any proposal. So good to, for my memory, good to have that within the definition just to be encompassing, but basically said it's going to be a no-brainer with any proposal, if I'm remembering that correctly. But any other commission member that was there, feel free to hop in.
I can get some sort of example and make sure my numbers are right this time, and present that to you.
Yeah, but I believe that social cost of carbon is the calculation where it's saying we're comparing the cost of adding these 10% renewables to that figure based on the total emissions predicted for the building without said renewables. And that's kind of a comparison there for that calculation.
That's helpful, thank you.
Could I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
So the 15-year simple payback, is that, standard language from the, SB 2030, or was that 15 years something that the commission talked about?
I believe this language was, we've been chipping away at this for a while, but it was from one of the example cities. And so we looked at a couple that had this requirement for utilization of renewable energy, and we liked this language best. Maybe it's from Minneapolis's requirement. So it's something that's out there currently, and that'd be good to actually see, I can contact them and see, how do you determine this? Can you give me an example from that city that it actually came from? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be very helpful. I'd just
Yeah.
be curious to see that.
Sometimes you work on things that are just slightly over your head, and you do your best in trying to explain them. But that's why you depend on experts like you, and of course all the people that I work with, and kind of this back and forth and doing additional research. So I appreciate your patience with us as we move forward here. And again, this is how the sausage is made. Remember? Okay, and then the last green building standard that is currently required in our green construction code. It's one of those things that, you can, there's certain portions of the code, the International Green Construction Code, that you can apply or say you want to be exempt. And the city of Maplewood actually applied this standard, and it's for requiring that construction debris be recycled or dealt with or reused in a certain manner. And so there was some additional research that was needed. Does the existing Green Building Code construction debris section include new and renovated buildings? And again, it did, because we saw, and we just added that into the scope, that it was for all the renovated buildings as well. And so that we have the definition here of what that construction debris is. Anything to build a building: concrete, asphalt, bricks, wood products, roofing, drywall, plaster, so on and so forth. And then requiring that they recycle at least 75% of that construction waste. And I think, again, I have a silly little example here, which, again, I'm not an expert, but we wanted to kind of see what does that mean, and how do you verify this? So, number one, the verification process, they'd have to work with a company that managed their solid waste during the process, and would I likely submit verification as they move forward on the amount of material that was sent to this renewable use site or recycling site versus the amount, that was disposed of. So this, again, let's say we were building the Wakefield Community Building, and the debris in this giant dumpster, 1,350 cubic yards, let's say was the debris. We'd need about 33 to 40 of these dumpsters, and so 75% of that diversion is 26 to 40 of those dumpsters would be, recycled rather than just brought to our recycling and energy center and processed for fuel-derived energy. So, I know that's a lot when it's your first meeting, but we have plenty of time to continue to work on this, and I have a few more things I'd like to look at based on your comments. Number one being EV capable. Number two being that social cost of carbon and that 15-year payback. And then making sure I include the scope, those revisions we discussed. So with that, I'll just open it up, see if you have any additional comments or questions.
When we went on the tour of Tennis Sanitation, did they talk about the construction waste and recycling of it? Was it at Tennis, or was it at the ER, the energy and recycling, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah. Tennis Sanitation, we took a tour recently of our residential recycling contractors' material recycling facility in St. Paul Park. And what we were seeing, Commissioner Edwards, was just the residential sorting of the material,
all
or
right.
the residential recycling that was being sorted. They actually have a different company that they call Tennis Roll-Off, and that's where they do the construction debris. But I don't believe, if there's ever a roll-off that Tennis puts out there, unless they're working under a green construction code, and all that construction debris now is brought to the Recycling and Energy Center.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why the Recycling and Energy Center, they're really working at getting some of those bulky items out of that stream of waste. We saw when we took that tour that those mattresses were being ground up and all the components there were being recycled. And in Maplewood, and there's still an opportunity, if you have a mattress you're trying to get rid of, the Recycling and Energy Center is coordinating with Second Chance Recycling for free collection of those. 95% of the mattresses, components of the mattress will be recycled. So this is something that they're rolling out to cities to try to help capture that on the front end rather than it's just going to that waste center, trying to get those items out of the waste stream. So they would be really supportive of such a waste diversion ordinance.
So I'm going to just bring the discussion back to the EV. And I'm curious, is there any way to track the current usage of electric vehicle charging where it's been installed in our areas? Is there some way we can capture just a real-time use? Because that may also guide the EV capable versus EV installed or EV ready.
As part of our Green Step Cities program, I've been tracking that, and there's real easy websites. You just go on and you can see all the EV charging stations throughout the city, and that will be another step in the city's kind of climate mitigation adaptation process. Will be to do some fleet studies, and part of that would likely be looking at where we want to see more EV charging stations. So yeah, I can get that information, what's out there currently, and then as part of like an EV study, you would look for areas that are really lacking in those charging stations and try to come up with policies, regulations, look for grants to try to get them installed in that area.
Yeah, because it'd be interesting to know if we're installing things that aren't being used versus putting the infrastructure in, so there once more use and once more and more people are driving EVs, if that maybe delaying installation of the charging stations might be in our best interest.
And of course, with the Green Building Code, it's a brand new building, and it's our opportunity to get the developer, because we're funding it as a city, to get them to do as much to help with our sustainability initiatives as possible. So, you really want to have those regulations in place, not necessarily say, oh, there's already an EV charging station right there, so you don't have to build one. But yeah, having that study in hand is very helpful in planning for EV charging stations. So I can bring that back too. And as I recall from Maplewood, we really don't have that many. There's about 10 throughout the city. Charging stations? Mm-hmm. 8 to 10, something like that. Mainly in our car lots there, and Hy-Vee.
Yeah.
We don't have any city EV charging stations, so at this time. Not at this time. But we are working on that Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, which we should be getting funding for, and we'll be doing that fleet study as part of that. All right, well, excuse me.
So just one question on the back on the waste requirement for 75%. For that also includes this requirement on renovations. Is there a caveat in cases where potentially they're doing a renovation, excuse me, on a building that potentially has materials that can't be recycled, that couldn't meet that requirement for the end of life of those materials? Is this more about making the attempt to have those diverted like have a recycler be able to take a look at those. Just in the chance that there was a situation where it wasn't feasible to do so, we wouldn't want to
Right.
restrict that.
Right. So we should make sure there's some sort of exemption in there, which, I think the MPCA rules and regulations would likely trump, us trying to require some sort of recycling of those materials, but that's a very good point. So we can look at a language about exemptions, yeah. Well, thank you. So in January, we'll kind of wrap it up, and then again, I'll bring it to city staff for review and recommendation, and hopefully we can wrap this all up spring of next year. Wonderful. I did want to point out that right now, there's a couple multifamily properties being built on Frost Avenue in our Gladstone area, and one of those is being built under the Green Construction Code, but they were able to utilize, rather than the more kind of cumbersome actual international Green Construction Code, they were able to utilize one of the proposed green rating systems that we have here, which is National Green Building Standard. So our building official found it easy to work with that and easy to work with the architect on ensuring those standards are being met. No, we don't have that requirement, but I do know when it went before the city council and they talked about it being a green building, they did make some promises, but there was no requirement. All right, so if we're ready, I can actually, that is it for our green building code, and I'll turn it back to our chair. Thank you.
Thank you, staff, to keep chipping away at that green building code. Next, we have item number 7, visitor presentations. Gonna just move along to item number 8, see if there's any commissioner presentations. No? All right, then back to you, staff. Staff presentation, the recap of the October 22nd, 2024 Ramsey Washington Recycling and Energy Center tour.
Thank you. So a few updates here for you in our staff presentations. We did take this tour on October 22nd. This was coordinated by our contracted residential trash hauler, Republic Services, as part of their work plan to coordinate this tour. And the Ramsey Washington Recycling and Energy Center is where all trash in the county now is brought to be processed. So we thought this would be an interesting tour. It's also where they're starting the food scrap collection program. And both Ramsey and Washington actually purchased this facility several years ago, maybe 5. I say that about everything. Everything is 5 years ago. Yeah, I think it was about 5 years ago they purchased this. And I hadn't been on a tour. I'd been on one tour before, but it was back when XL Energy ran this facility. So I was interested to see the improvements that the counties had made with all their investments. So we had a member of our city council there. We had environmental commissioners. And then we also had members of our climate mitigation planning team there. We had about 15 people. And they gave a presentation at the beginning, and then you see we geared up here. Commissioner Edwards and I are taking a little selfie. We're gearing up with all of our safety equipment and headed out to that big pile of trash there, which is where they initially, all the trash trucks come and they tip it there, and then it's sorted. But they did do this presentation, so I pulled out a few key, oh, you know what? I had a few slides from the presentation, which I see are not included. So I'm just going to give you a little recap. So this pile that you see, it's actually part of the trash that cannot be processed. What they do is they do sort out as much as they can of the big bulky items that can be recycled, like a large chunk of metal, things like that. And we did see a stack of cans, but I don't like to say that because then people think, well, why am I recycling? Because they recycle there. But it's very contaminated, and you know they are able to capture some of those aluminum cans and recycle them, but don't let that out because then people won't recycle. But so once they get down to the smaller items, the trash flows through, and then it's they look for the green bags now for the food scrap pickup program, and they have these automated artificial intelligence systems now that are learning as they go along to identify those bags and pull them out. And so we got to see a huge bin of just the food scrap bags, which will go to Rosemount at the SET site, and it will be processed into compost. So, you know, that's available now to all Maplewood residents, and they're slowly rolling that out to all cities in Ramsey and Washington County. And so we weren't able to see that physically, but we did see some visuals of that because they were still processing the trash, so we couldn't get way back in there. But this pile is the materials that can't be brought in because they're too hard to process, apparently. Like you might see a mattress or a big chair in there. And unfortunately, I didn't realize this. I thought all of the trash was processed into these little pellets, which are then brought to Mankato or Red Wing to be burnt for energy, so fuel to energy program. But there is a small percentage that just cannot be processed that way, and it does end up in a landfill. So a small percentage, they say about 10% of Ramsey and Washington trash does go to a landfill. But
Which was amazing to me, that only 10% of our trash goes to the landfill. That was amazing. I did not realize that. I really did not. That was amazing.
yeah, I think I'll stop there and see if maybe Commissioner Edwards and, yeah, Commissioner Edwards, you were the one there. Do you have anything else to add?
Just that.
Oh, and, excuse me,
Oh,
that other guy. Chair
Well-
Guile.
and they do have, I thought they said they do have like a big magnet. It's not just aluminum, but it's a lot of metals that they were able to take out of the actual garbage for recycling. Some of the things that can be recycled. It was that, and it was the amount of fires they have from people putting the lithium batteries and propane tanks in the garbage. So that was also, I didn't even realize that happened either. So that was amazing. And then I had the question about the plastic garbage bags. Why do we continue to use plastic garbage bags if they don't disintegrate and blah, blah? Well, they don't go to the landfill, number one. That all of the garbage gets shredded first, and then it goes through this whole sorting system, and they take the metal out, and then what can't go into, be made into pellets, then gets put into this pile to go to the landfill. So it was super interesting to me. And, you know, we had to sort that whole pile, right? It was no fun sorting that pile. Just kidding.
When you were sorting, did you find any
Yeah,
of
they
my
got
old
free
earrings?
labor out of, pardon?
Did you find any of my lost earrings in that pile when you were sorting?
Found a few diamonds, no. But yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, I guess just in general, I was just kind of in awe at the entire operation the entire time. I have heard a lot about the facility and the tours associated with them, and I'd highly just recommend that if you haven't been there to go, because it is extremely fascinating, and I think anyone that attends is going to find it pretty neat. So,
And that presentation that I failed to put in here, the next phase of solid waste management for the counties is an anaerobic digester, which will not emit any greenhouse gas because the heat is so hot. So they're building that facility right now.
And what will that be processing?
All of our trash.
Okay.
Burns it, or it heats it to such a high temperature, it turns into what? We didn't get that. That'll be another tour. Oh, that's right.
Well,
So-
and tennis sanitation, the recycling was also interesting too, the amount of manpower that goes into recycling, and they really do get every single thing out of those recycling containers that they bring in every week. That was also super interesting.
Yes, I spotlighted that tour last month, but we had taken that in September.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, and that was part of Tennis Sanitation's work plan. And they're one of the only, they're like a mid-size solid waste company. So they're probably one of the only mid-size companies that has their own materials sorting facility. So it was interesting to see how they did that. They do use a lot of human sorting. So, I mean, did I say that right? A lot of people to sort. So they have, a line where people are actually picking out like the plastic bottles, things like that. So it's a little bit more labor intensive, where I think some of the larger companies I've toured, their MRFs, and, there's more technology involved with lasers and things. So that was also very interesting, yes. But moving on to our climate mitigation planning update. So you recall that we rolled this out June, I think, of this year, and we've been working with a team of interested folks from Maplewood, people that work here, have businesses or are residents, and it's a collaborative approach working with them and our consultant, Pale Blue Dot. We're going to have 7 workshops, and our last workshop was on November 12th, and we do have 2 representatives from this commission that have been serving on that task force, as well as some of the other commissions too. So just a brief, I guess, update about what the last workshop was. We started looking at action criteria, so actions that the city of Maplewood can undertake, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, like maybe offering incentives for renewable energy, things of that nature. So things that will help us meet our goals. And there's 3 areas of goals. There's building and energy, waste, and transportation. And I'm working on the waste subcommittee here. And we looked at things like, one example was having the city purchase its own recycling carts. Right now, the city owns the trash carts, and it's a way to ensure that when you go out for RFP, you kind of level the playing field and allow all haulers to put in a bid, because the small haulers, they wouldn't have the capacity to roll out all the carts. So that's one reason to have your own carts. You can, and then that also affects the pricing, when, and you're better able to manage your solid waste, your labeling and things like that. So that's one action item example that we might recommend in this climate mitigation planning update. And so I'd like to maybe open it up to other commissioners, Commissioner Guile and Lates, who are on. How many years have you been here? Excuse me, Ben. I apologize.
All good. I'm going to punt this one to Commissioner Lates because I was not at the last meeting.
So I'm on the Buildings and Energy sub-team. It's a small but mighty team. We had 3 people at this last one. Good discussions. I think I did find it challenging at this last meeting in the sense that, we just came up with all of these, we thought are great ideas and then we have to be really critical of them potentially. And I find it challenging trying to kind of just try to predict which ones would do well on or have better support than others in terms of community support and things like that. We found a lot of them actions would depend largely on how well they were carried out potentially. So that was one of the challenges, but a couple examples of actions that we were looking at were around, kind of having task force groups that are kind of a synergy of different stakeholders, people from the city, and contractors and utility providers and such to help leverage all of their combined resources to help with community engagement and education and helping put forward kind of abilities for individuals to take advantage of energy efficiency improvements and renewable energy utilization and the like. So a lot of interesting discussions and looking forward to continuing that process.
Yeah, we'll really have to depend on or make sure we have good partners as we roll out the mitigation plan, because of course the city can't do it all alone. And what Commissioner Lates was referring to in the weighing of the different action items, we looked at each action item and scored it to see, number one, would this be supported, do we think, by number one, the council, by number two, maybe the industry that we're implementing it into, what kind of impact it would have, would this make a big change or a small change, and then is it equitable, are we kind of leveling the playing field for everyone? So thanks for your work on that, Commissioners Lates and Gill. All right. I'd like to announce environmental education and outreach opportunities. Here's a group that our commission hasn't worked with closely, but I've been part of for the last few years. It's the Rice-Larpenteur Alliance, and it's Roseville, St. Paul, and Maplewood, as well as Ramsey County, created this alliance a couple years ago to really look at creating a more livable community at the intersection of Rice and Larpenteur. And we work with the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce, and it's grown to this great organization that is really helping this particular neighborhood. And they do events, and here's a big event that's coming up. They do about 4 events a year, and this is the winter warm-up, and it is on Saturday, December 14th from 1 to 3, and it's going to be on the Maplewood side this year. And so they do a lot of kind of outside fun things, and then there's, of course, also inside Caribou Coffee, and then there's Burger King right there. But we have an opportunity to do tabling if we wanted to. So I'll just open it up, see if you have any ideas, and if not, they also have volunteer opportunities to help with this winter wear clothing exchange, things like that. And I can follow up with an email on that and send you the link if anyone's interested. But I don't know if anyone has a burning desire to do any tabling. We're not really doing our climate mitigation planning survey just now, but
I'm not volunteering to be there, but I might. But I think this would be an awesome opportunity to do maybe some chloride education. And also you can help meet your MS4 permit requirements.
Hey,
If there's not another city already planning on doing that.
now it's mostly residents that are attending this, so are you talking about like when you're salting your driveway, things like that? Ah. Okay, well, I'll send up a follow-up email on this and see if anyone's interested in either spearheading a table or just volunteering or just attending because it's fun. And then finally, we were going to talk about the January and February dates. So they're both on a holiday. So I have a couple suggested dates here: Wednesday, January 22nd, or Tuesday, January 28th. And then for February, Tuesday, February 25th, or Wednesday, February 26th. And we always have to kind of work around the city council meetings and other commission meetings, so these were some available dates. So I don't want to put you on the spot right now. I'll send out a follow-up email and get your take, maybe do a little Google survey or something on the dates that work for you. Okay, Rebecca, any or.
And truly, either of those, all those dates work for Mrs. Retired, so.
Excellent.
No. I wish.
We can
No,
finalize
actually
those in
not.
December after I send out a survey. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Gill.
All right, that wraps up all of the agenda. So I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:15 PM.